Hi guys, this is Lisha from Scarlet Moon Creations, and I'm back. This is recent reads. We're wrapping up the books I read in the first half of March. And actually, it's probably the first 2/3 of March. But yeah, I'm participating in the Owl's Magical Readathon. I had hoped to read 12 books. A big part of that is because I still have like books from early this year that are out from the library that I still have not read yet. The only reason I haven't returned them is because the library is closed. So I have like the physical copies. But yeah, so that's not working out because I've read 4 books in the time period we're discussing today. And yeah, as I'm filming this, we're in the last 2 days of the month. So yeah, let's jump right in. I will have my monthly stats in the second half of April wrap up. So hit that subscribe button if you want to see that. But I'll let you know what prompts each book fits for the Owl's Magical Readathon as I talk about each book. Just know that there is a link to G at Book Roast, the host for the Owl's Magical Readathon's announcement video, in the description below. Okay, so the first book I read in the month of April is Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. This is the cover that is for the illustrated edition. And actually, I half read this, half listened to it. I could not get like a full-size version of the, I think, original cover, which I'll get into the reason why I'm bringing that up in a second. So this is book 1 in the Farseer Trilogy, which is also the first trilogy in the Elderling series. The big reason I read this is because I've been interested in Robin Hobb's books. I've heard of her. She's considered classic fantasy. Not as classic as, say, Tolkien, but still classic. And that's a big deal for a woman author to be so touted. But Elderling Along is also started this month. Elderling Along is a read-along where we read books from the Elderling series by Robin Hobb, and it is hosted mainly by Rebecca at Becca and the Book, so link in the description down below. This was the book for the month of April, and I picked it up. Like I said, I listened half in audio and read this ebook, which is the illustrated edition. How did I feel about this? This is very much a coming of age fantasy. It definitely read like classic fantasy, which is often coming of age. There's a young guy who is the bastard son of a prince, the heir to the throne, and he doesn't remember anything before his 6th birthday, when his supposed grandfather brings him to the keep. Like, I'm not taking care of him anymore, his father can do so. And so this is his entry into the world of royalty. He's royal, but not quite enough. And we basically see his life from 6 to about 14, I think. And his father, shortly after he is brought to the keep, decides he doesn't want to be the heir to the throne, so he leaves, takes his wife, and goes off to wherever, leaving his son, his bastard son, to kind of figure out the ways of the court. And the king his grandfather decides, you know what? I think he can be useful. And so begins his training. Sorry, I just realized I haven't said his name. Fitz's training to become an assassin. And that's what this is about. It's interesting. It's not like, wow, so amazing. I've never read anything like this before, especially for fantasy readers, high fantasy readers like myself. This is set in a medieval type world. The machinations and whatnot, even the magic is not too new. It doesn't feel generic though. This is all told from Fitz's point of view. It's not first person. I don't know, but it's still like this. These are Fitz's memories. He's telling us this from the future, and Fitz is an interesting guy. It's written very interestingly. I wound up giving this 3.5 stars because of all that I said. It's pretty basic high fantasy, and I do want to know what's going on. The pacing is pretty typical for a coming of age first book, high fantasy as well. So again, nothing outstanding, but nothing bad either. So this is I've read this for the Owl's Magical Readathon as my to fulfill my prompt for magical creature, and care of magical creatures, excuse me. And the prompt was to read a book with that had a beak on the cover, an animal with a beak on the cover, and this version does not have it, but I could not get another one, so we're gonna move on. So the next book that I read is an anthology, Fantastic Hope by Laurel K. Hamilton and Patricia Biggs and William McCaskey. There are 17 authors in this. I will say right up front, I have not read the entire thing. I read 2 short stories in this by 2 of my favorite authors. That's why I got it. I don't know if it's weird or not, but I don't read anthologies the way I read a regular book. I pick them up for the short stories by the authors that I know, and I read those right away, and since they end, I put the book down. This is why I don't read short story collections, because the story's over, so that's how my brain and my body are like, alright, moving on to the next book, like physical, something different. But eventually I will go back and slowly but surely read all of the other books. So I'm not counting this as complete. I did not put, I don't think, a star rating for the entire book on Goodreads, and that's okay, because this fulfilled my Owl's prompt for Potions, which was to read a book less than 150 pages, though that might change. Subscribe, hit the notification bell to find out what I say in my next reading wrap-up video. But anyway, the 2 stories that I read in this anthology was one by Laurel K. Hamilton, one of the editors, and Zombie Dearest. In this short story, we are following Anita Blake, Vampire Hunter. That's her main series, Hamilton's main series, and we follow up on one of Anita's previous zombie raisings and the outcome of that. It was a really interesting one from a recent book. I immediately knew which zombie we were talking about when it came up, and I was like, oh. So that will be interesting for the future, especially with how things turned out. Zabrowski shows up, and I'm super happy because he's one of my favorite characters. The other short story that I read, and this is by Patricia Briggs, and it is a part of her Mercy Thompson series, which I have talked about, and I'm currently going through a reread this year. This is Asil and the Not Date. Asil is a tertiary character in the Alpha and Omega series of the Mercy Thompson universe, and I like his character. In this, we see some anonymous people set Asil up on a blind date, and it's very amusing from the beginning. And I think anything involving Asil is, to me personally, amusing. And then the date goes way left. Asil and his date wind up having to deal with some issues, and no one's who they say they are. So yeah, and I enjoyed it. I liked spending time with Asil. He's a character I would not mind seeing more of. Even if it's just little snippets like this in other short story or anthology collections, I would gratefully love. So for those two books, I rated it 3.5 stars. Not that that matters, because it's a whole book that I'm supposed to be rating. Yeah, both were urban fantasies, but I don't know that that is what the entire all the stories in this anthology fall into that. I know they all are speculative fiction, but what types, I'm not sure. None of the other authors are ones that I'm aware of. But let's move on to the third book I read, which was also an ebook. I started this last fall, I think, and this book is Rookie Move by Serena Bowen. It's so weird that I have to put it this way, but I'm trying not to get the glare from the window on there. But yeah, so this is a contemporary romance, a sports romance. I have never read a sports romance before, to my knowledge, and I have not been reading contemporary romance for very many years. So this year, one of my kind of like low-key reading goals was to read contemporary romances, and this I saw recommended by, I think, Peace Love Books on YouTube, and so it sounded interesting. It's set in New York City. It's the first book in the Brooklyn Bruisers series, because I love series. Basically, we're following two characters who, one of which is a NHL hockey player. He is a rookie. He's just been added to the team, and it turns out the team's like PR person is his ex-girlfriend. They have history, and it was interesting. I like DNF'd it last year, low key. I didn't make a big deal out of it, but I decided to give it another chance because I did want to see where it was going, and I felt better this time around reading it. Obviously, I completed it, and I think I gave it 3.5 stars. But I read this for the Owl's Magical Readathon. Muggle studies to read a contemporary book. This was very much an experiment, which I enjoyed. I did not hate it, and I really needed it after the Assassin's Apprentice. I needed something light and also romance, and this fit the bill, so I picked it up. And obviously I read the ebook version of it. Last but not least at all, I finally read Kingdom of Ash by Sarah J. Maas. And this is a big one. This took me a while because it's 1,000 pages, or damn near 1,000 pages, 980 something. Whew. I was really worried. As I've had this is the library version, and I have a mini one. Where did I put it? I have a full set of the Throne of Glass series in these mini flexi-bound versions, and if you've never seen them and have been wondering about the differences, this is the hardcover, this is this. It's tiny but legible, and for each version they highlight a certain character's name in color. And where is her name? There she is. And in this one, it's Aelin. So, I don't know if you can see that, but yeah, Aelin is highlighted in gold in this version. But yeah, so I kind of half read it in this one and half read it in this one. But anyway, so this is the penultimate, this is the end of the Throne of Glass series, the last book. I read Tower of Dawn earlier this year, and then I wanted to jump right into this, but I needed a break, and then I was worried. I had built this up so high that I was scared about how emotionally it was gonna wreck me, and then it turned out not to really wreck me that much. This I gave 4.5 stars. I wanted to give it 5 stars, but I didn't because it was not the best. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't 5 stars. Other books in this series are more favorite for me than this one is. Everything's coming to a head here, and it worked out well, and I feel like that took away a bit from it, and it might be because right after I read this, I watched Daniel Green's video about the drawbacks of YA and how, the stakes are not that high, or they give you high stakes and then back off from them, and it kind of felt like that here to an extent. I felt like there was a lot of teasing, especially in the last 100 or 200 pages, I think, and it was just oh, the stakes are high. No, they're not. Oh, but these stakes are higher. Oh, no, they're not. Oh. I also felt like more people should have died in this. There were some conveniences in a couple of places, but not just, the big deal with the gods and whatnot, and the word keys, that there was some conveniences there, and that was a big thing throughout the last 4 books or so, and I was just really, and so the first half, 2/3 of this book, I was all in and emotional in one particular part, and then the ending happened, and I'm just and then everything got wrapped up in a nice little bow with very sand-sized crystal exceptions, and I was just because you see, roughly a month ago, I read the end of the Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn series, Hero of Ages, and there are some similarities between the two towards the end there, and that did a better job with how it wrapped things up. It was a little bit more realistic. There was war, there's stakes and the gods, and then the relationships, both love and friendships, and it. So I wasn't 100% happy with this ending. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't great, amazing. Oh my god! So I built this up, hyped this up in my head, worried about how it would affect me, and then it didn't do the thing. So yeah, a teeny bit disappointed, but still 4.5 stars. Like, I think partially it's because, how you hype things up, and like, the reality is not here. So I might have overhyped it in my head, but it was still a very good end to a very good series, a new favorite series, and I've finally completed it, minus the short stories, which I'll read at some point, in Assassin's Blade, since I own that now. I read this book for the Owl's Magical Readathon, Transfiguration, read a book with Shapeshifter. There are several in here. More than I was expecting. There's actually an unexpected shapeshifter in this book, so that was good. I think that's all I have to say. Oh, no. I gotta say also, my mom is reading this series currently. She's currently up to Empire of Storms. Oh no, Tower of Dawn, sorry. She recently finished Empire of Storms, and her comment to me was, oh, that reminds me of Fellowship of the Ring. And that was just before I started this book. And, oh boy. That's when I was like, wait, this is reminding me of Lord of the Rings as well. Like, there's a whole section that reminds me of the Battle of Helm's Deep, and then tons of stuff that reminds me of the entirety of Return of the King. For those who have read this, Dorian as Quest and Frodo at the end there, come on. They don't seem similar. The spiders, gosh. And then other things that I saw in passing, but it's not a big deal because, at least a big deal on BookTube, because not many people have read the other series, it seems. But one of my favorite series of all time is the what's the name of that? The Black Jewels Trilogy, or the Black Jewels universe, and there are definitely some correlations that are similar, and I think someone said that Sarah J. Maas is a fan of that series as well, so yeah. There's no plagiarism happening, but it's interesting, and I wanted to take note of that. So yeah, that's all I have to say. Those are the books I read in the first half-ish of April. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you read these books. Do you see some of the correlations here? Are you participating in Elderling along? I'm not reading the next Farseer book in May. In May. I will probably read it in June. So, yeah, that's it. Thanks so much for watching. Please click the like button if you like this video. It would help me so much. Subscribe, like I said, if you enjoyed this and want to see more bookish content. Other than my recent reads, I occasionally do TBR videos for specific witchy, pagan, affiliated readathons, and also I've got some favorites coming up real soon. Things I've been wanting to film for quite some time. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.